The year's 2018, and you just got back from work or school and decide to relax and watch some YouTube. In your recommended, you see a video from a channel called Node, called Testing the Best VR Guns Ever Made. At this point, you need to click it. And this was the start of your journey to Boneworks.
This is it.
Fast forward a year later, another video from Node comes out. Boneworks next-gen VR gameplay? After watching the video, you were sold on it. This is the best VR game you are ever going to play. Later that year, it releases. You play it and love everything about it, and you want more. But radio silence. Until... I know that I did this at the beginning of my last video, but I have to do it again. In the beginning of the last video, I mentioned that we had doubled in growth of subscribers from 90 to 150-ish. And now I'm currently recording this and we have 1,200 subscribers at the moment. And I don't know what to say. Other than thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for clicking on the videos and for believing in me. I hope he wasn't saying anything important. Anyway, back to the video. So this week a question has been plaguing my mind. Is Bonelab really better than Boneworks? You'll probably hear from a lot of people that Bonelab is actually worse than Boneworks. You can see countless posts on the discussion forum on Steam about how it's just worse in every single way. So the original way I was going to do this video is I was going to play through Boneworks and play through Bonelab back to back and see which one was better. But after performing a ritual in a loading screen in Boneworks, I broke my entire game.
My bones are working. My bones are working. They're not working. My bones. What happened to my bones?
I don't know what I did, but the game is now unplayable. I've tried uninstalling it, looking it up online, but nothing seems to work. So I went with the next best thing. I just played through Bonelab again. And the first thing I noticed about Bonelab compared to Boneworks was that the level design was a lot better in Bonelab. It felt like you were actually exploring this world, and some levels actually were completely different vibes from the other ones. I also think that the enemy density was a lot better in this game, and the different set pieces were done very, very well. For example, the train part. Fat cunt, bye bye. And also all the avatar unlockable levels, apart from Sprint Bridge, because I couldn't do one jump. Fuck's sake, I never made it. Oh, for fuck! A lot of people said that the physics were worse in Bonelab to Boneworks, but from what I remember, they are very, very similar. I personally had no problem with the physics most of the time in the game. Get the fuck out of the fucking box! Get out! You prick! Get out the fucking box! Oh, thank you. And I actually think that the melee weapons were way better. I'm predominantly a melee player. I don't enjoy shooting too much, so melee is my way to go. It feels like it just registers more, and it feels like it gets my force right whenever I actually put something behind it. Whereas in Boneworks, I felt like I had to slow myself down, or maybe even just go into slow-mo to actually feel like hits are registering and feel satisfying. But I found myself barely going into slow motion in Bonelab whatsoever, because the melee combat in my opinion is just better. I also think that the implementation of driving was done fairly well for VR. I'm absolutely dog shit at driving, so I don't think any degree of tuning is going to turn me into fucking Lewis Hamilton. But what it holds for the future is very exciting. I also like the different variety of weapons that this game has to offer. I like the fact that there's new shotguns in the game. I don't personally use them a lot, but when I did use them, they were extremely satisfying. One thing that I will say that is pretty bad about Bonelab is that the shooting does feel quite worse. And that is a major issue when it comes to VR, because a lot of players enjoy shooting. I'm not one of those players, so I'm not really bothered. However, there's people that have 3D printed stocks so that they don't miss, and so it feels more immersive for them. So if shooting is worse, it is kind of alienating some of the audience. However, like all things, this can get better with time, and I'm sure a bug fix could fix any issues. Another con that I have with this game is that the campaign is extremely short. I finished it within 2 to 3 hours, which is just not acceptable for a $40 game. You'd expect at least a few more hours of content in the campaign, but the short nature of it leaves people a bit lost when they finish it. The game is a sandbox game, but what do you do after the campaign? You make your own fun? Some people can't do that. But this is when Bonelab shines, because the whole point of Bonelab is not to be a standalone game. It is the mods that are going to make this game great. I see the potential for Bonelab to expand far beyond its current scope. With the limited SDK that is available right now, and the fact that people have made such amazing things already, apart from Blowlab, we don't talk about that one, makes me believe that when the further support comes, this game is going to shine brighter than it ever has. I just want to point out that at the beginning of Boneworks, there were several reviews saying the same thing that people said about Bonelab. Now I'm sure you've heard, if you played Boneworks at the start, when it first came out, that the game was janky and you needed to get used to the jank. And I think the same thing applies to Bonelab. People are too quick to jump the gun and want instant improvements, and when things are different, they don't like it. I'm not saying Bonelab is a perfect game, I'm just saying it has the potential to be a great game. However, the execution on Stress Level Zero's part is not the best. The game should already be great before the community steps in, but this game puts the community first, so it is down to us to make the game great, rather than the developers. They are giving us the tools to build what we want, and while I commend them for that, I do think that they should have worked harder to provide more content for the game as it stands today. So is Bonelab actually better than Boneworks? I mean, realistically, that's just down to you. I think that Bonelab is going to be better than Boneworks, and I personally really enjoy Bonelab, but I know some people were very disappointed with its launch. By the end of the day, only time will tell whether this game will be better, and it is up to the mods to make it or break it. Anyway, that's all I really have to say. If this is your first time watching, and I don't see you again, I hope you have a nice life. Bye bye.
Oh, pills!
Oh my god.
Pills!